In this video, we want to know what exactly is the meaning of the word mole in this introduction to mole concept. Now, prior to 20th of May 2019, the definition of mole is that the mole of a substance is the amount containing as many elementary entities as the number of atoms in exactly 12 grams of carbon-12. I take that definition again, that a mole of a substance is the amount containing as many elementary entities as the number of atoms in exactly 12 grams of carbon-12. All right, now that definition is theoretical. Now let's go into a practical definition. When we talk about mole, what exactly do we mean? When I say I have, for instance, 12 or I have a dozen, I have a dozen of stops. It must not always be eggs. I have a dozen of stops. What it means is that I have 12 stops. Okay, whether it is egg, whether it is whatever, drinks, 12. That's talking about a dozen. Now, if I say I have a gross, I have a gross of stuff. What do I mean by that? If I say I have a gross of stuff, it's talking about 12 dozens. Dozens multiplied by 12. 1 dozen is 12, and then 12 of that dozen, 12 of a dozen is 12 times 12. So 12 times 12 will give me 144. 144 stops. All right. Now, if you are conversant with the Bible, when they say a score is equivalent to 20. It's 20 stops. All right. Now, David, the man of God, said that the years of a man is 70. 70 means 3 times 20, 60 plus 10, that's 70. But Abraham said it's 100 years, which is 5 scores. Then the Lord God himself in Genesis chapter 6 says it is 120 years. You need to choose anyone for yourself, the number of years of a man. I've chosen for myself also. What I'm trying to say is that the score is 20 stops. The gross is 12 dozen into 12. And a dozen is just 12 stops. If I say 3 dozen is equivalent to 12 times 3. Now, when we talk about a mole, 1 mole of stuff. Now, that stuff is the elementary particles. Is equivalent to 6.02 times 10 raised to the power of 23. So that's what we mean by a mole. A mole is a unit of measurement in chemistry. A mole is the SI unit of measuring substance, and then in chemistry, and then it contains about 6.02 times 10 raised to the power of 23 stuff. All right, since you have understand this, we'll move to the next thing. Up next is that if I say 1 mole of sodium, let me use it, 1 mole of sodium, it contains about 6.02 times 10 raised to the power of 23 sodium. And what I mean by that? 1 mole of sodium contains 6.02 times 10 raised to the power of 23 sodium. If I say 2 moles of sodium, 2 mole of sodium is equivalent to 2 multiplied by 6.02 times 10 raised to the power of 23 of that stuff, of sodium. Now, you can have calcium, you can have chlorine, you can have whichever. Now, let me give another instance. Let me say I have 1 mole of chlorine. 1 mole of chlorine is equivalent to 6.02 times 10 raised to the power of 23 chlorine. What if I have a molecular compound let's say 1 mole of carbon dioxide. 1 mole of carbon dioxide is also equivalent to 6.02 times 10 raised to the power of 23. Now, we're not talking about dozen, 1 dozen of stops, 12 stops. 1 mole of a particular substance or an element, because what mole is used to measure is elementary particles, ions, protons, atoms, molecules. Now, the mole of this molecular compound is exactly 6.02 times 10 raised to the power of 23. Even if it is H2SO4, for instance, H2SO4, the 1 mole of H2SO4 is exactly equals to 6.02 times 10 raised to the power of 23 H2SO4. All right, so now you have understand what mole is. Mole is a unit of measurement in chemistry. Now, let's relate mole to the molar mass. Let's relate mole to the molar mass. If you go to the periodic table, you'll understand, let's take sodium for instance. Sodium have atomic number 11 and molar mass of 22.99. All right, so now you need to understand that 1 mole of sodium, 1 mole of sodium is equivalent to 23 grams of sodium. That's why we now say that the molar mass of sodium, the molar mass of sodium is equals to 23 grams per mole. Now, how do you relate this? 1 mole of sodium is equivalent to 23 grams of sodium. So for each 1 mole, there is 23 grams of sodium in it. That's what we mean by 23 grams per mole. That is per individual mole. Then I can have another one like calcium. Calcium is atomic number 20 and mass number 40.08. Now, the 1 mole of calcium is equivalent to 1 mole of calcium is equivalent to 40.08 gram of calcium of sodium. All right, now you have understood this. Let's move to the next thing. Now we can say that the molar mass of calcium is 40.08 gram per mole. All right, so we can now say exactly say that 1 mole of sodium equals to 23 gram per mole of sodium, and it's also equals to 6.02 times 10 raised to the power of 23. Now you are correct. 1 mole of sodium is 23 grams of sodium, 23 grams per mole of sodium, and it's equals to 6.02 times 20 times 10 raised to the power of 6.02 times 10 raised to the power of 23 sodium. So you are correct. Now, using this illustration, let's deal with this question up there. It says that 1 mole of sodium contains this thing. Let me use another pen. 1 mole of sodium, 1 mole of sodium contains 6 times 10 raised to the power of 23 sodium. Now, how many moles are contained in 0.6 gram of sodium? Don't be afraid, just relax. Now, what you need to do is that you need to understand that 23 grams of sodium is equivalent to 1 mole of sodium. So if that is the case, 23 grams of sodium is containing, this is the 1 mole, 6 times 10 raised to the power of 23. Now, what I'm going to do, atoms, because they say it's atoms, all right? Atoms. Now, what I'm going to do now is very easy. Now, look up at the board. Let me change my pen. So I will have that 23 grams of sodium gives me 6 times 10 raised to the power of 23 atoms of sodium. Now, let me expand the board because you need to understand what I'm doing. Let's use the red pen. This red pen working? Let's use. Okay. 23 gram of sodium. Gram of sodium contains 6 times 10 raised to the power of 23 atoms. Remember, of sodium, atoms of sodium. All right. Now we are asked 0.6 gram of sodium will contain how many atoms of sodium? So 0.6 gram of sodium will has X atoms of sodium. If you are conversant with mathematics, you cross multiply so that X times 23 is 23X, which is equals to 0.6 times by 6 times 10 raised to the power of 23. Now, if you have done that, divide by 23, divide by 23, you are going to have your X. Now, let's do the maths. 0.6 times by 6 times 10 raised to the power of 23, and then we're dividing all by 23. The answer will be 1.56 times 10 raised to the power of 22. 1.56 times 10 raised to the power of 22. All right, that's the final answer. Look for the option there. So option B is the final answer. Thank you very much for watching, and you are free to follow for more videos like this.